Today's little tutorial is car leather cleaning. Now what I have lined up in front of me for the most part are anything but car leather cleaners, as in not dedicated purely for car leather cleaning, other than the infamous Lexol, which is a public favorite that I've bagged on endless times. Not that it's not a good product, it's just ineffective on leather that's actually dirty. Therein lies the problem. If you have leather that's actually dirty, you want something that actually is going to clean it. This will not work, and I will show you firsthand how ineffective it is against dirt. So in no special order, and I have to restate because actually I have two products that are true leather dedicated cleaning products. One is Lexol, which is purely a leather cleaner, and the other is Meguiar's, which is labeled as a cleaner and conditioner. So it's a 2-for-1 deal on this one. Everything else here is a form of all-purpose cleaner. Here we have a total interior cleaner by Detailer's Pro Series. We've got 303, which is a multi-surface cleaner. We've got Griot's Garage carpet cleaner. We've got Chemical Guy's fabric cleaner. And then we have my very famous Meguiar's super degreaser, which has been cut down 5 parts to 1, which means for every 1 part of the concentrate, I add 5 additional parts of water. And then what I have over here, even though it says Meguiar's all-purpose cleaner, what I've been testing out for the past few months is 3D Professional Upholstery and Carpet Shampoo. Now I know we could get into the endless debate as to the difference between, let's say, upholstery shampoos, carpet cleaners, like this, carpet shampoos versus an all-purpose cleaner versus a multi-surface cleaner. But the reality is that they have some basic essential ingredients, which are, as a rule, they're alkaline based. Sometimes you have a citrus based. I don't believe that any of these are what they refer to as a citrus based cleaner. And I'm not going to get into the chemistry of everything, because at the end of the day, you as a detailer, what do you want? You want results, right? You want results that are provided in a user-friendly experience. As a customer, you're just paying for results. They hire a detailer, they just want the results. So honestly, as long as it's not damaging the material, they don't care how you get there. They just want you to get there. So I'm not going to worry about all the nuances between a all-purpose cleaner and the other endless types of labels of how they label their products, from interior to multi-purpose to shampoo, go down the list. But we're going to test it on some leather and see what and how they compare. Let me set some context of the moment for you. What we have is a 2006 Mercedes S430. It has 143,000 miles on it. Now, if we go on the inside, and just to let you know, this is a dealer car. It's one of the few dealers that I actually do work for, and I do not detail all their cars. Now, look at that carpeting. This is a sure sign that you have what I call an inexperienced detailer, and sorry for all you other detailers out there that like to put these stripes into the mats. Now, I am guilty myself. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, I did the same thing, and we called it clean lines. It was meant to be the power of suggestion, so that when Johnny Customer got into the car and he saw these lines that often housekeepers will vacuum into your carpeting in the house, and it looks cool. I am not a fan of it anymore. I like the nice, clean, even pattern. So I can always tell when some low-budget detailer has been in here, and this is talking about my world and the world here in Southern California, that is saturated with cheap detailers and cheap dealers that don't want to pay a premium or don't want to pay to get things done correctly. So this dealer calls me out when they know that something's got to be done correctly, and they know that their low budget detailer cannot do it. Now, if you look at the side bolster of this panel, and this is leather, by the way. And so far what I can tell is that it is coated leather, which means it has a clear coating, which is the good news. It makes it easier to clean, and it holds up better under normal use and conditions. I have 3 spots that I've cleaned. Now, this spot I cleaned with super degreaser, and I had to scrub it 1 time to get it this clean. This spot was used by the 3D, which is a concentrate, and you dilute it down, and I diluted it down according to the manufacturer's instructions. Now, I had to scrub this 2 times with a toothbrush in order to get it as clean as the 1 time with the super degreaser. Now, this spot right here, which is almost undiscernible or indiscernible, was done with, lo and behold, but the Lexol cleaner. And I scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed, and this is the best results I could get from it. So once again, to illustrate my point that I keep driving home, is that Lexol, yes, is a good product, but you must define good. Will it hurt or harm the leather? No, it will not. But will it actually have the ability to clean leather that is truly dirty? And therein lies the rub. And my simple answer, based on the overwhelming and compelling evidence, is that no, it cannot. So therefore, I'm going to switch to something that's far more effective, and that's why I switched to a non-dedicated leather cleaner, such as these multi-purpose or all-purpose cleaners. Now let me lay out a little bit of the rules that are the rules. And as a rule, you always start out with the rules. And what are the rules in this case? Well, the first one is that you read and start with the manufacturer's instructions. You look on the label and you read the directions. What is the dilution ratio? What is it safe for? What is it unsafe for? That's the starting point. Okay, so once you learn the rules, then you can learn to break the rules. And that's what I often do, is I use what's called off-label use. Uses that are not labeled for use of that product. The second rule for cleaning anything is that you always do a test spot in an area that cannot be easily seen. It's called an inconspicuous spot. You've got to verify, because ultimately every car is a case by case. So I could take this exact car and have the exact model, same color, everything, and yet I can get a different reaction or response based on the cleaner I'm using, because you never know what's happening at the manufacturer plant. Halfway between a model year, they may decide to outsource the leather material to a different company that has finished it differently than the other company. And I can guarantee you, you're not going to get a little memo from the dealership or the manufacturer telling you of such change in the middle of the model year. So you've always got to test. That's the point. You got to test. Second, when it comes to leather, especially a car that's this old. Now, this leather by no means is trashed, but there are some signs of wear and tear on it. So if we look, for example, right here, I can tell that the finish has literally been worn off. Now, this could have been done by a cleaner, or it could just be from Johnny Customer sliding his ass across this and wearing it off. Another commonplace is right here on the side bolster. Because this is tan, it's hard to distinguish. This damage would show up easier if this was black leather, because this would kind of show up as a light gray. Well, this is kind of showing up as kind of a funky light tan, and it almost creates like a greenish hue to it. So I know that the finish has been worn off here. So when I clean this, the unseen consequence, which I'm trying to inform you about, so that you can do damage control with your customer, is that this damage will actually be revealed, or will show significantly more after you've cleaned the surrounding area, because the surrounding area and the dirt that's on this actually disguises this and camouflages it to a degree. Once it's clean, it may not be camouflaged as well. So this is where you have to have a discussion with your customer and let them know that, hey, I can get results like this and they're going to love it. But the trade-off will be that this may perhaps show more significantly, and once you ring this bell, as in you clean it, it's really hard to go in reverse. You can't really put the dirt back on there and disguise this back up. So that's where you, as a professional, you may need to make an executive decision and decide what's worth it. You can also clean partially. In other words, you can kind of finesse the moment and clean it and kind of blend it up into truly clean, but then do less of a thorough job down here to continue to disguise this area, so that when you pull back under normal viewing conditions, it's not as noticeable and you cannot see any line of demarcation like you can clearly on these spots. You can clearly see exactly where I have cleaned and where I have not. So that's where you can finesse the moment and kind of blend it. Bring in some other cleaners and do some test spots and see what kind of results we get. So like I said, the first area I used was 3D upholstery and carpet shampoo, and the instructions say you dilute it 1 to 16 parts water, which is what I did. This is the area right here. I had to scrub it twice with this. Nowadays, toothbrushes, because of the dental industry, really only come in soft, and that's kind of a bummer. I wish I could get firm, but this is pretty soft. So I had to scrub this twice, whereas in the super degreaser, on this spot here, I only had to do it once, and it came clean the very first time. Up here was the Lexol original formula leather cleaner, and you can see it did a very poor job. I would have to scrub this probably 4 and 5 times in hopes of ever achieving this level of clean, because this has a pretty good texture to it. It's pretty deep, and on this spots, every little nuance of that texture is truly clean. Let's try, for example, the Griot's carpet cleaner, and yes, I get it. It is a carpet cleaner, not a leather cleaner. And I'm just going to spray it right on the toothbrush, and I'm going to try a spot right here. And I'm using a fair amount of pressure to the point where this thing is bending because I'm using that much pressure. And right now is the point where I stopped and I considered that one go. Now look at that, is pretty impressive based on that it's a carpet cleaner. Now, you may be asking yourself, why are you using a carpet cleaner? Why not just use a dedicated all-purpose cleaner or a leather cleaner? Well, the simple rule is that leather cleaners are not aggressive enough. Why do I use other cleaners? Well, that's where I try to simplify my world for efficiency, but I ultimately want to be effective as well. And I know that these carpet cleaners, shampoos, all-purpose cleaners, multi-purpose cleaners, they have essentially a lot of the same basic ingredients, and they are more strong than a dedicated leather cleaner. So this is a way that I can clean the carpeting, I can clean the leather, whether it's vinyl or true leather, it doesn't matter. My goal is to A, see how effective these products are, and B, can I use or find one product that can serve many, many cleaning purposes. So that's why I use these, and this is why I'm testing it. So this I would give a B+. So far the Meguiar's Super Degreaser gets an A+. The 3D gets an A. The Griot's gets a B+. The Lexol, I'm going to give that probably a C-. Let's switch to the 303 multi-surface cleaner. Okay, the only real disclaimer on this is that it's safe for use on all water-safe materials. Now I'm hosing this out with the cleaner itself to make sure there's no residual cleaner from the last one. Now I consider clear-coated leather to be water-safe material. So let's see how it works down here on this dirty spot. Once again, I'm scrubbing with the same amount of pressure to the point where the handle is actually bending. And in fact, it did. But if I look in the little tiny crevices of the fingerprint or the texture, it is not 100% clean. So I know if I was using this product, I would have to go over it a second and possibly a third time to really get it clean, which is what I just did. And now it is clean. So I'm going to give this a B. Okay, that's Darren's empirical hierarchy scale of grading cleaners. How about that? Now let's go with the Meguiar's Gold Class, and this is both a cleaner and a conditioner. And if you've watched any number of my videos, you know my thoughts on conditioners, which is that as a rule, I'm not a huge fan of them. So let's pick a dirty spot right here. Once again, I'm a scrub, and you'll notice if it's showing up on video that this cleaner is a milky, kind of creamy consistency to it. And I can tell that it's not being overly effective. Did it clean the area? Yes, it did. But did it clean all the nuances of the area? No, it did not. But for many of you, you're probably thinking, well, shoot, Darren, if I can get those kinds of results, so what if I have to clean it twice? I also know that it's conditioning the leather at the same time. Well, then, okay, if that's the case, then by all means, buy the Meguiar's Rich Leather Cleaner Conditioner. And honestly, the fact that I can get it that clean in only 2 passes, to me is pretty impressive. And just as a note, if I feel every one of these spots, I can discern no difference. So you might be wondering out there in YouTube land if that some of these areas have some kind of residue where it's sticky, or maybe it's softened up the clear coat or done some kind of damage. Well, the simple answer is no. They literally all feel the same. The leather feels just like it should, just like it did at the beginning. So based on this, I'm going to give this a B to a B+. I think I'm going to add the B+ because it does have a conditioner, but I'm not a chemist. You're likely not a chemist. What does that really mean? Is it truly conditioning my leather? But the fact that there's no greasy feel to it, you know, I kind of question that. It doesn't mean every conditioner has a greasy feel, because the logic would suggest that you say, oh, well, the conditioner is soaking in and nourishing that material, and that's what it's supposed to do. It's not supposed to feel greasy. Well, if it truly has a clear coating on it, guess what? It's not a porous material. It's not going to be able to soak into the leather and make it softer than before. Not if it has a true clear coating on it, which by all accounts I can tell this does. Last but not least, unless we know, is Detailer's Pro Series Interior Cleaner. Now let me clean this off so I can rinse off all the prior cleaner, and I'm just going to use right on there. Let's pick another dirty spot right here. Once again, I'm scrubbing as aggressively and hard as all the previous moments. Okay, I'm going to give that a B, because I feel like in order for it to be as clean as the others, I'm going to have to go over it a second time before it will really clean all those little nuances and fingerprint of that leather. So here we have the different spots. Once again, everything feels the same. It feels uniformed. Now we get into cleaning tools. This is a non-abrasive scrub pad. It is a cheap ass pad. I literally get these at the 99-cent stores. Here in California, that is what they are called, our 99-cent stores. They come in a 3-pack. They're great for large areas. Then I've got my brush. Well, you can find these all on my website, by the way. This OXO brand, I actually get at Target, but I can find it on Amazon, and there'll be an Amazon link, and I can actually get it shipped straight to my house for cheaper than I can get at Target. at least at the Target in my area. Maybe your area will be different. Now I like a bristle because these little bristle fibers will get down, just like the toothbrush, into this texture of this leather. So obviously this would be unacceptable to leave it blotchy, so now I've got to pick a cleaner and go over it. And so I think I'm going to reach for my 3D, since it's already mixed up in here, spray it directly on the leather, and then scrub. Now I realize that sounds probably incredibly harsh on video, because some of you have made comments. It's like, wow, Darren, I would never scrub and treat my leather that way. It's like, well, for some reason, we have all been groomed to think that leather is this delicate, sensitive material, but not all leather is created equal. This leather is not the same kind of leather that you're going to find on like a $5,000 Louis Vuitton handbag that some high-end woman's going to be buying, or some $200 Cole Haan shoes that you're going to buy at Nordstrom's. It's not the same kind of leather. This has been coated. It's much more durable. People's ass and back have to get on it, slide in and out of it. So it's got to be more durable. So despite the noise that you're hearing, I'm not doing any damage to this leather. So now we've got a uniformed appearance, and I'm going to go ahead and finish cleaning this so you can see what that looks like. Now, because this is not just a solid flat panel and it's got some pucker to it, I'm going to have to go over this multiple times in order to really create a uniformed appearance on this entire panel, because there is different nuances to the kind of the geography of this panel. Probably the more appropriate word would be the landscape of this panel rather than the geography. Geography, or the, how about the topography? The topography of this panel is such that it's uneven in height and depth. Geography would suggest an actual location within this panel. So the topography of this piece of panel has nuances to it, variation to it. And probably from that angle, you can see where this permanent damage lines were there before, now reveal themselves. But with that said, is because this is wet, it will actually show darker as this dries, because this material here where the damage is, I know that the clear coating and the certain amount of the dye has been removed permanently. So this here is truly down to the natural leather material. When it gets wet, it darkens up. As this dries, this will lighten up and it will be less noticeable, which is the good news. I know. For all you hyper vigilant, hypercritical guys out there with a true eye for detail, you will know that I left one product out, and that is the Chemical Guys Fabric Clean. And it's not even called Fabric Cleaner, it's called Fabric Clean. Now, something that I do, just as a little trick, if you want to call it that, is that I mix, and I don't do this with the Meguiar's Super Degreaser or the Wheel Acid, because I go through so much of that. But when it comes to the fabric cleaners or the multi-purpose cleaners that come in a concentrate form, and that is the difference with, as a little sidebar, that you've got to decide in your life as to that winning balance. Because, for example, my Meguiar's all-purpose cleaner, it only comes in a gallon size, and it can be diluted down anywhere from 4 to 1, 5 to 1, 10 to 1, 20 to 1. It's really not going to make or break your world. but it's a gallon size. So you're paying for shipping for a container that essentially weighs about 7.5 pounds. But if you buy it in a concentrate like this in a smaller version, that's a little more appropriate for your world because you're not going to be going through volumes and volumes of it, then this might be a better choice. Or maybe one of these cleaners that are what's called ready to use. So literally, and this is 22 ounces, that's what you get is 22 ounces. This, for example, is 16 ounces, but it can be diluted down 20-to-1, and don't make me do the math, but it's going to be a lot more than 22 ounces. So that's where you got to decide as to effectiveness and then economics. What makes sense in your world? So for a lot of you, buying something small, you're not going to be paying a bunch in shipping costs because it's going to be a concentrate and it's only 16 ounces, which is roughly a pound, I believe, if that's what the conversion rate is, if I am correct, versus a whole gallon, which is I think about 7.5 pounds of liquid. So yes, I'm still a big fan of the Meguiar's all-purpose cleaner, and I go through so much of it, so it makes sense economically for me. But that's where you got to decide in your world. But what I do is when I'm mixing up my all-purpose cleaner or my interior shampoos, carpet shampoos, whatever you want to call them, I do use distilled water, because distilled water is the purest water that you can get. And if you're interested in understanding how the distillation process works, it's pretty interesting. So check it out. Just know it's very pure. Why does that matter? Well, it's the same reason why you have soft water in your house if you do, because it removes a lot of the minerals. It adds salt to it, which gives it kind of a feel to it. Actually kind of gives a slimy feel to it when you use it in the shower. But the point is that you're not having to overcompensate for the dirtiness in the water, the minerals, by adding more chemicals. That's why in your house, when you use soft water, you can use less laundry detergent. Well, the same principle applies here. So that's just something that I employ, a little technique that I use to make the product perhaps a little more effective. So if you were paying attention, you will have noticed that I did not bust out the chemical guys. So here it is. I have diluted it down to the proper label on the manufacturer, 20-to-1, and I'm going to show you, and I'm going to clean a spot. And just to be fair, this side was not as dirty as that side, but nonetheless, we'll still be able to determine the results. So here I am scrubbing away, got a little drip. And so far I can tell it's breaking it down very nicely. But not nicely enough, because once again within that grain I can still tell that it needs a little help. And while I'm at it, and this is what's cool about shooting on location, is I just broke a couple rules. And I'm curious who out there has picked up on those rules, and they're going to be rules based on experience. One of the rules is that when you're cleaning, you don't want drips. So if you spray an area, I'm going to work from the top down. So if I spray up here and then the liquid drips down, I'm going to make sure I'm going to wipe that up immediately and then scrub. Because what will happen is that as those drips drip down, they'll sit there and they will dwell and they'll start cleaning in these individual strips. And if they have sat long enough and the product that you're using is strong enough, it will clean it to a level that will require perhaps more aggressive cleaning on your part in order to blend those drip marks in. So that's a rule. You don't let that happen. Also, I never set bottles down on some surface that I think could possibly damage it. Now there's two reasons for that. One, that the bottle, because they go from the cement to my van to endless materials that this gets set on, and the bottom of this gets scuffed up. So if you set it on leather, you certainly would never set it on the car paint. I guarantee you that will scratch it. I don't set it on the wood trim or the wood veneer. I don't set it where there's ever a chance that it could do some damage. Carpeting or fabric, it's a non-issue. Leather, more of an issue. Also, if you're a mobile detailer, or even if you have a shop, based on the weather, as things heat up, it will expand, because things tend to expand. The air expands, certain chemicals expand, and it will create pressure in these bottles, and then it will start dripping out here. As it drips, it collects at the bottom. So the bottom of this may actually have cleaner on it. So if you set it on a material such as leather, and then you pull it up, you're like, whoa, lo and behold, there's a ring that was left there, and now you either have to clean it, or it's actually sat there long enough where it can actually do some damage, once again, based on the situation, because there's many variables. The cleaner you're using, the material you sat it on, how long it sat there. So that's just something that I train my guys when I train them, that those are rules that you just don't break. Once you learn the rules, you don't have to overthink it, because you know that that's the rule and you just follow the rule. And that way you're not thinking, oh wait, is this leather safe? Is this bottom wet? Is it gonna leak out? You don't have to think of all those things. That would take up too much time. So you just know the rule is you place it in a safe place, and as you use it, you use it. If it starts dripping, you bring the drips up and you scrub. And you go from there. And you can see where I really cleaned it with the toothbrush, that this, you can still see a line of demarcation. So based on my experience, if I had to pick in this moment on this leather, and that is the problem with products, is that really there's so many other things that will factor in to the results that you're able to achieve. And it really does come down to a case by case, because you can use this cleaner on leather in this car, and then you get, let's say, another Mercedes, and you clean it and you don't have the same results. And you think, oh wow, did my cleaner suddenly go soft on me? Well, that's because the material's it's not identical. Weather conditions will be a factor, how hot, how cold, how much humidity or lack of humidity in the air. All those things are a factor. I don't care whether you're talking about cleaning windows, polishing paint, waxing paint, dressing tires. The material and the weather conditions will play a factor. And the more extreme the weather conditions are, the more extreme the effect it will have on your process. So this is my Meguiar's all-purpose cleaner, diluted down 10-to-1. Because I go through so much of it, it is my go-to product, and I know it's very effective. And right there is basically 99% perfect, which in my customer's eyes would be absolute perfection, because they're not going to get up and look at this leather from 2 inches away. It's not going to happen. If they are, that's not the customer you want, by the way, just as a rule. So bam, that's clean. So if I had to pick in this selection of, let's say, about 8 products, my go-to would be the 3D Upholstery carpet and shampoo, and my Meguiar's all-purpose cleaner. So then the debate comes on cost. This can be diluted down, what is it? Okay, 16-to-1. Trust me, if you don't get it exactly right, it's not gonna make or break your world. I promise you. If it's 14-to-1, 18-to-1, it's still gonna work, okay? So don't overthink that part. Same with the Meguiar's all-purpose cleaner. Notice how I just sat that on the leather? I broke my own rule. But what you didn't know is that I verified that there was no drips or wetness on the bottom of this container. So Meguiar's all-purpose cleaner, as a rule, I use it 10-to-1. That seems to be the winning combination for me, or the winning balance as far as strength goes. And just so you know, based on that sound, I am using a pretty a fair amount of pressure. So all that sound you hear, it really is a valid point. I am using that much pressure. Now, because this middle section has the perforations, that's another common question. It's like, oh, Darren, what about the perforations? What are they there for? Well, originally they started out as just a visual enhancement because it just looks cool, right? Now, like with Mercedes and the high-end cars, whether it's sports sedans, sports cars, luxury cars, whatever, they actually have heat. That was the next step, is that they actually heated these seats up. So there's heating elements behind here. Then the next step was that they actually blew cold air with the AC through these seats. So you may go into freak out mode thinking, oh, if you get it wet, it's going to damage it. Well, yeah, if you get it wet enough, yes, it will. But if you just spray it like I did and scrub it, it's not going to be a problem. I promise you, there's people out there driving in these cars without any shirt on, or even if they do have a shirt on, they're sweating that much, like in, let's say, Arizona or Florida, that they're getting the seat wetter than I am right now. And I'm not saturating it. I'm not shooting it at point blank range and forcing the liquid back behind the leather or into those perforations. Once again, common sense should always be applied at a healthy level. Unfortunately, common sense cannot always be taught. Some people are just born with more common sense than others. But if you don't have common sense, the best thing you can do is to understand that you don't have common sense. And therefore, you have to apply more caution because you lack common sense. Read the directions, follow the directions more specifically, follow these videos. This is why I go to such length. You know, and people accuse me of just like, wah, wah, wah. Will this guy ever shut up? Well, I'm just trying to give you useful information so you can actually go away from this video, apply it to your real world, and limit the risk that is already innate or natural of anything in life. Everything in life has inherent risk to it. So you want to go about things in a less risky way. And that's what I'm trying to teach you, is to go about life and detailing in a less risky way. It's called risk management. That's why insurance companies are so profitable. They know how to manage the risk, but first what they know how to do is they know how to define the risk. That's why they will ask you what zip code you live in, your age, your gender. Talk about discrimination. They absolutely discriminate. You know why? Because there's certain risks associated with those different areas based on age, gender, race, zip code, go down the list, okay? Driving experience, whatever. So I'm applying that same principle to this. Now we have a seat that essentially looks beautiful. And this has begun to dry almost completely. So I want to bring you in and show you that again. So this area, you can see now how it has lightened up. That's because that leather that is truly exposed leather has now dried and it's less noticeable. And in my opinion, if I was Mr. or Mrs. Customer, I would take this level of clean, which to me is literally 99% clean. I mean, they would think it's 100%. It's really not going to get much cleaner than this. I would take that, and knowing that this is going to be exposed a little bit more. To me, that is a better trade-off. Now, something else as a warning point is this cloth. It is now pretty damp with, well, about 8 different types of cleaners on it. You do not want to leave this laying on a material that it can clean or damage, just like the bottle. So that's another point. Same with your scrub brushes. If they become so saturated and they're dirty, and then you start dripping dirty water or your dirty chemical onto a surface, guess what? You're making work for yourself. So put it somewhere where it's not going to matter. Okay, that was a lot of work. Not nearly as much work though as actually detailing this car, which I got to finish up now. And really all I got to do is the leather, because the dealer knows that their low budget detailer, they ain't gonna be able to get this clean. That's why they call me in, and that's the good news about positioning yourself as an expert. But you can't just position yourself as an expert. You actually got to be able to perform. So it's one thing to talk the talk, but you actually got to be able to produce the results. But once you can produce the results, people, not everyone, but people will be able to understand the value that you bring to the table. And that's why the dealer suddenly will be willing to pay me $80 to $100 an hour instead of, you know, the other detailer, the low budget detailer that's probably lucky to make 15 bucks an hour, but he knows that there's value in the service that I can deliver. So in this experiment, my conclusion, in my opinion, is that these, in this moment, prove to be the winning products. So you take your pick. I'm still a huge fan of the Meguiar's all-purpose cleaner. Comes in a gallon size, might be overkill for you, but I use it in so many ways that suddenly you realize, well, shoot, if I mix this 10 to 1, that means I'm essentially going to end up with 11 gallons of this. How long is it going to take me to go through 11 gallons? Well, it might take you a year, but it will last a year, but I know I'm going to go through it. Or I can buy a smaller size. That's for you to figure out. Ultimately, you got to figure out that winning combination that works for you in your world. In closing, let me add, I am super duper busy. How's that for a silly word? Super duper. But I'm super duper busy. So let me answer a question that I'm amazed. People write in, it's like, Darren, how do I get these products you recommend? Well, something's wrong if you don't know how to get these products, because there's links all over my website. All you do is click on that link, and guess what happens? A separate window opens up, and it will either be AutoGeek for the time being, or Amazon, which I'm converting all my links over to Amazon. That's how you get it. That's how I supplement my income. I get a little bit of a commission every time you buy a product. So for all of you that have written in and have told me that you use my links to buy the products, 2 thumbs up. Trust me, I appreciate it. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it. But that's the simple answer. That's how you get these products, is you just go shopping online. Once you click on a single link, you do not have to click on all the separate links in order for me to get credit. Simply click on one of the links on my website. It'll open up that window. You can go back to the previous window, write down the product number, name, whatever, and then you just put it in the search box for Amazon of the window that's already open and continue to fill that cart till your wallet is either empty or your heart is content. Whatever works out better for you, it's a win-win for both of us. The only other thing that could possibly be happening is that you have an ad blocker on your toolbar. And if that's the case, then all my pages will not appear as I constructed them to appear. And all those links will not appear. So in that event, you will not know how to get these products. So disable your ad blocker. Trust me, ads are a pain in the ass until you actually want something and you're after something. Then you want, like, hey, wait, I want that. Where's the link? Suddenly an ad's good in that moment. So that's where you pick and choose. But in the situation with my website, disable your ad blocker. Helps you, helps me. That's my ending note.